Right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jin Yong, President of the CFA Society of Malaysia. Welcome to this two-part webinar series on NFT. It's organized by the CFA Society of Malaysia with support from ACCA. Okay, let me just get this on the screen. All right. So today, despite what you may have seen earlier, for those of you who have joined us earlier, things like toilet rolls and also Trump. We're not going to be talking about Trump today, right? Today, for part one, what we'll be looking at is actually the legality and intellectual property of NFTs in Malaysia. I also note that some of you have already actually voted in the polls. For those of you who will not be aware, we also have the polls available for you to actually vote on some questions, as well as to raise any questions you may have, which the panelists will be answering at the end of the session later today. The poll website is actually at meet.ps, and it was actually shared earlier also, and I believe one of our team will also share in the chat screen the link for the meet.ps polls. And the interesting thing is that out of the 8 people who have taken the poll, I think there's already 3 or 4 of them who say that, yes, some of you here are already owners of NFT. That is interesting indeed. Right. Okay, so let's get it started. Now, if I mention lawyers and, oh, sorry, let me see the webinar housekeeping. So yeah, I'll probably just want to repeat that. So this is a 1 hour, 15-minute session. That includes a Q&A at the end. Also, please ensure all the participants here do make sure your mic is on mute throughout the session, and it will be recorded. So if you join late or if you had to leave earlier, you will still be able to access it from the CFA Institute ARX platform, right? So with that said, now, if I mention lawyers, law firm, what comes to mind? Right? Usually it's rolls of boring looking hardcover bound books with bookshelves stacked up until the ceiling, or mahogany meeting tables. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit here, but definitely a far cry from virtual toilet rolls, digital real estates, or even pixel arts of punks. I just wanted to provide a contrast to both our guest speakers. Both are not your stereotypical lawyers. Our first guest speaker is actually partner from GLT Law, a firm that has earned commendation from Financial Times, no less, in 2019 as innovative lawyers. So this firm is at the leading edge of regulation, and it has a dedicated practice to crypto, fintech, and even blockchain, right? The first speaker, he has extensive experience in corporate and commercial law, right? Intellectual property law, and data privacy, amongst others, with a focus on IT and emerging technologies. Right? Enough from me. I'll let our first guest speaker, Jihan, introduce himself first.
Right. Thanks for the kind introduction, Jin Yong. Sorry, I think this is Calvin's slide.
Oh yes, Kelvin will be our second speaker as well. So Kelvin is also the legal associate from GLT, the same firm, right? Yes, yeah.
Okay, so thanks again for the kind introduction. Just to recap, we are a full-service law firm, and as mentioned, we are trying to, bridge the gap between the old school law and the new age cutting technology that is disrupting our market in all industries right now. So we would like to think ourselves as a modern, innovative, and forward-thinking firm, the forefront of technology and changes to the market. So we are full service, so we aim not to just be a legal counsel, but also your advisor with our on-the-ground and technical expertise based on each industry. Again, as mentioned by Jin Yong previously, I'm a partner at the Intellectual Property and Technology Practice Group and also in the Corporate Commercial Practice Group. Previously, I practiced at Wong & Partners for 5 years, before joining GLT as a partner. So during my practice, I would say I've assisted many companies with on-the-ground issues, operational and transactional issues. So I have a good idea and apply the practical and commercial considerations into the legal problems and solutions. That's it from me. I think I'll pass it on to Kelvin next. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. A very good evening to everyone. Hope that everyone is keeping well. My name is Kelvin, and I'm a legal associate at GLT Law. My core practice areas include mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, restructurings, commercial contracts, private fundraising, corporate advisory, corporate governance, and employment matters. Also, I've advised clients on emerging technology and industries such as equity crowdfunding, peer-to-peer financing, e-money, initial exchange offering, cryptocurrency, and blockchain technologies. I am very excited to be here today, and it is my utmost pleasure to be one of the speakers for today's session. That is just a brief introduction about myself. Back to you, Jin Yong.
Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you, Jihan. So, NFT, not for Trump fans or non-fungible tokens, right? So I'm looking at the poll right now, and yes, there are some who's actually asking, what's NFT, right? Now, most of our audience are from the financial industry, and I think every day we deal with fungible assets. That would be bonds, shares, and even money itself. I'm not wrong, that is fungible asset itself. And if I understand correctly, non-fungible assets are things like diamonds. I mean, you think of diamond ring, right? Perhaps that's why it symbolizes the purity and importance of wedding and marriages. In fact, I think all of us here already own or possess a NFT already, right? The hint is that it's actually in your phone. And I think Kelvin will be able to give all of us a quick walkthrough. Hey, what is this thing called NFT? Kelvin.
Thanks, Jin Yong. Allow me to commence the session with a brief introduction to non-fungible tokens, more commonly known as NFTs. You may ask, what exactly are NFTs? Simply put, these are unique digital files created on a blockchain that contain data that show ownership of an asset. This could be anything from creative artworks in physical or digital form, content like music, photographs or film, in-game properties, personal health records, boutique hotel suites, customized domain names, tickets to live events, news articles, tweets and photographs, or even collected items. To explain what the term non-fungible means, it may help to look at the different types of assets based on tangibility, whether you can touch and feel it, and fungibility, whether it is easily interchangeable with other assets. As you can see from the slides, examples of tangible and fungible assets are gold bars, orange and casino chips. As you know, one gold bar is the same as the next gold bar. Intangible and fungible assets are like Bitcoin, loyalty points, and carbon credits, which you cannot physically see or hold them. Then, there are tangible and non-fungible assets, such as your house, antique furniture, or paintings. They are unique and one of a kind. Finally, those that are intangible and non-fungible can be your video game avatar, copyrights you own, or even your COVID-19 vaccination cert. NFTs will be part of this category. The majority of NFT transactions
Kelvin, if I may interrupt.
Yes,
so
please.
The slide before, the avatar, that I couldn't help but notice that cute little pink, is that from that, what's his name, that Vietnamese game?
Yes, that's right. This is
what's it called?
Play to earn platform, yeah. Called
Axie
Infinity.
Axie.
Yes,
that's
right.
And you earn some very funny sounding currency, some potion, I think.
Yes, it's called
smooth
love
potion. Yes, smooth love potion.
Yes, correct.
Yep. Right. So that monster, if you may call it, that's an NFT, if I understand correctly.
Yes, that's right. It is an NFT. Right. That's why NFT can be anything. It can be even a game character like Axie Infinity.
Right. And you also pointed out that our COVID-19 vaccination cert, right, which I alluded to by all our smartphones, I presume most of us would have it. that's also will be considered NFT because it's unique to all of us. Is that true?
Yes, that's right.
Yep. Great. Sorry to interrupt. Yep.
No worries, Jin Young. Thanks for the question. Okay, let me just continue. I was in this slide, yes, correct. The majority of NFT transactions are currently in relation to collectibles and digital arts. Do you know that these two categories account for more than 90% of the entire market? Let me give you an idea of what the characteristics of collectibles and digital arts are. These NFTs are digital in nature, such as graphic animation. They are computer-generated and randomly added with different colors, hairstyles, accessories, special effects, and so on. The debut of these artworks, known as drops, are often hyped up in social media such as Discord. There is a trend to create an entire alternate micro-universe filled entirely with NFT objects, which you may know is being called a metaverse. In essence, the environment is digitalized or augmented, where you interact with other users virtually. Now that we have reached the end of part 1 of today's session, allow me to give you a brief summary of what an NFT is. NFT is a digital certificate of ownership based on blockchain technology for unique one-of-a-kind non-fungible assets. Although it was originally popularized by digital art and video games, NFTs are increasingly being used for various types of assets. Interestingly, the NFT industry has moved from pure collectors to speculators and now to business marketers and product developers. NFTs are a new class of digital goods and properties. It is hard to tell whether this is a marketing fad or not, as the technology is still at leading edge and evolving. There are risks that software bugs may cause smart contracts to fail, which may backfire on the brand. With that, I conclude part 1 of this session. Back to you, Jin Young. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelvin. That was an interesting, short and succinct intro to what essentially NFT is. And I've also been, again, keeping track of the polls. I realize some of you already have also voted on the second question. Do you think NFT should be regulated? So 43% say yes, 40% say no, and also 43% say that it is not possible to regulate, right? So the poll questions will still be running. Even the first questions, you can always move back and forth, right? Now, I'm just thinking, if I recall, cryptocurrencies in Malaysia are regulated under the CMSA, if I'm not wrong. And there's this thing called the Order 2017 or 2019, where cryptocurrencies itself are prescribed as securities. So SC, or the Securities Commission, is the regulator. So that's cryptocurrency. Now we're talking about NFTs. How does the regulators, regulated in Malaysia, I would say, view it, or rather, actually, who regulates it? Would that be Bank Negara, or would it be SC? Or for that matter, is it even legal in the first place? Perhaps, Kevin, you can share some thoughts on it.
Sure, Jin Young. Thanks for the question. I will proceed to address the question in part 2 of today's session. More specifically, I will discuss on the digital asset regulations in Malaysia and the laws that apply to NFTs. The key question here is whether NFT is a security under the Malaysian securities law. Because if it is, then the issue and dealing with it, including the transfer between holders, will be regulated. To answer that question, we need to know the laws that define digital assets as securities. Under the Capital Markets and Services Prescription of Securities, Digital Currency and Digital Token, Order 2019, the terms digital currency and digital token are both defined. It is important to note that NFT will be a security if it meets 2 tests. Firstly, whether it falls under the definition of digital currency or digital token, and secondly, whether it meets the security requirements, which I will address shortly. So let us try to first understand what are digital currency and digital token. Based on the 2019 order, digital currency means a crypto that functions as a medium of exchange and is interchangeable with any money. If you think about it, this means that if a crypto is issued on a blockchain, functions as a medium of exchange, and is interchangeable with any money, it will be deemed as a digital currency. For example, Bitcoin like most other digital assets, would fit this definition because it is issued on a blockchain, used as a medium of exchange by many people, and in some countries is interchangeable with money. On the other hand, digital token means a crypto that is issued on a blockchain. This is a very wide definition that does not have any other qualification. This means that so long that it is issued on a distributed ledger, then it will be deemed as a digital token. In other words, all crypto, if it is not a digital currency, then it will be a digital token. This applies to all altcoins and meme coins, such as the famous Dogecoin. Now that we have understood the first test, in the upcoming slides, I will discuss in what circumstances these tokens will be deemed as securities. Rule 3 sub 1 of the 2019 order states that a digital currency would be a security if A, it is traded in a place or on a facility, such as exchanges, whether centralized or decentralized, like Luno, Binance, or Uniswap. A person expects a return in any form from dealing with a digital currency. This is very subjective, but we all know that anyone who purchases digital currency expects a return, right? Otherwise, he would just have donated the money to charity organizations. Lastly, it is not issued or guaranteed by any government body or central banks. If the digital currency meets these security requirements, then it will be deemed as a security under Malaysian security laws. In other words, Bitcoin, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with, is a security in Malaysia. To determine whether NFT is a security, we need to know if it meets the definition of digital currency or digital token. We know that all crypto are digital token by definition, but for purpose of discussion, we will also assess if it fits the definition of digital currency. For this purpose, we need to consider whether NFT functions as a medium of exchange. NFTs, if you may be aware of, are commonly priced in Ether, which is a digital currency. Some platforms may price it in a digital token, such as the Binance coin, BNB. There is no dry and cut categorization, where it depends on its usage and adoption, which varies from one NFT to another. For instance, can a holder use NFTs to purchase or exchange for goods and services? The reality is, if there is no adoption of accepting or regarding NFTs as a form of payment instrument or medium of exchange, and it is only used as a collectible, then most likely it will be just a digital token instead of a digital currency. However, if people start adopting and accepting it as a payment instrument, then it may fit the test of being a medium of exchange. In short, a digital currency will be a security if it is tradable in active market, privately issued, and the buyer expects return. Now that we know NFT is a digital token, even if it is not a digital currency, we need to find out if NFT is a security. Rule 3 sub 2 of the 2019 order states the requirements for a digital token to be prescribed as securities in Malaysia are as follows. A, the person receives the digital token in exchange for a consideration. The consideration and the income or returns are put together. The income or returns of the arrangement are generated from the acquisition, holding, management or disposal of any property or assets or business activities. The person expects the return in any form from the trading, conversion, or redemption of the digital token, or the appreciation in the value of the digital token. The person does not have day-to-day control over the management of the property, assets, or business of the arrangement. And lastly, the digital token is not issued or guaranteed by any government body or central banks as may be specified by the Securities Commission Malaysia. So just a quick question here. Do you think NFT satisfies all these requirements? If all these requirements are satisfied, then a digital token will be prescribed as securities in Malaysia. I would highlight that these requirements are very similar to a collective investment scheme or interest scheme in Malaysia. So if the digital tokens are issued and managed similarly to a collective investment scheme or interest scheme, then the digital token will be deemed as a security. Digital tokens which are security are similar to collective investment schemes. Therefore, NFTs do not fit into this definition because currently NFTs are not commonly used for such purposes. However, do bear in mind that as the use cases for NFTs grow, especially in the decentralized finance, DeFi sector, where NFTs are pooled or staked together for the purpose of generating returns from holding, lending, or investment activities, etc., it may be classified as digital tokens.
Wait, if
Yes,
I may
Jin Yong.
just interrupt, yeah, I was just thinking of this collectible scheme. Well, NFT not fitting to this definition. You mentioned, I think you mentioned earlier that it's typically priced in Ether, right? What the second largest crypto by market cap, but it's not a CIS. So I was just thinking now, if I wanted to purchase an NFT, are there any restrictions to go about purchasing an NFT using ringgit? Can I use my ringgit to buy an NFT?
Okay, Jin Yong, there's a very good question. I would like to highlight that NFTs are actually connected to cryptocurrencies because they are essentially tokens on the blockchain. So in order to purchase a particular NFT, you will need to own a cryptocurrency which is compatible with that particular NFT's blockchain. Since most NFTs are built on the Ethereum blockchain, it is very common for a person to use Ethereum to purchase an NFT. All right. In Malaysia, you can easily use the Malaysian ringgit to purchase cryptos on a recognized digital assets exchange platform. For example, Luno, MX Global, Synergy, Tokenize, and later you can use the cryptos to purchase an NFT on a specific online marketplace. For example, OpenSea, which is by far the largest NFTs online place. Does that answer your question, Jin Yong?
So I had to get my ringgit, convert it into Ether using one of the digital asset exchange like Luno, and then take that Ether and open another account at what you mentioned just now, OpenSea.
OpenSea,
right?
Yes,
and
correct.
then only then am I able to. So that's a two-step process, if I get you.
Yes, that's right. You're right.
You mentioned OpenSea, and I remember reading somewhere there's this local platform called Pentas. I think Pentas.
Yes, correct.
That is a Malaysian platform, right?
Yes, that's right.
Do they also list NFTs? I mean, enable people to buy NFTs?
Yes, Pentas enables people to buy NFTs on its platform, but their NFTs are built on the BNB blockchain, which is the Binance Coin blockchain. So you would have to use BNB, Binance Coin, to purchase the NFTs on that platform.
And if I understand correctly, the local crypto exchanges here, they don't have Binance, if I'm not wrong.
Binance is not regulated in Malaysia because Binance is yet to obtain a DEX license from the SC.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, those recognized changes are like what I said: Luno, MX Global, and Synergy and Tokenize.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Thanks for the question again, Jin Yong. I'll move on. The next question is, what if NFT is deemed as a security? If the NFT falls within the ambit of securities, then the jurisdiction of Securities Commission Malaysia will apply. For instance, based on the guidelines on digital assets, A, the platform will have to be issued in a recognized market. For example, on an IO platform. B, the NFT creator or artist may likely have to qualify as an issuer under the IO guidelines. C, the NFT issuance and transfer will have to be recorded in an internal registry of the IO operator. D, the sale and purchase of NFTs may likely have to be conducted in fiat and not crypto. And lastly, NFTs may not be allowed for secondary market trading yet. If NFT is not classified as a security, then it may be unregulated because NFT itself is unique enough to be developed and created into an entirely new category of assets. Nevertheless, it is very important to note that this very much depends on the facts. This could mean that it is an unregulated market transacting in digital assets without any reporting obligations or even AML-CFT supervision. But I would like to bring to our attention that this position seems very unlikely. There is no safe harbor protection provided in the 2019 order for NFTs as of this date. This means that there is no exemption for certain security qualified NFTs to be exempted from being categorized as a security.
Again, I think the slides have a lot of sketches. I think there was the mouse malfunction happening there.
Yes.
Okay, let me see whether we can clear that so that it's easier for the.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Let's try to restart the share screen. So I do apologize to all our audience for that. By the way, there's another poll question that's already been put up. It's leading into the next one. Anyway, yeah. Okay, we're back. Great. And no more sketches.
Okay, let me continue. Just a quick summary on part 2 of whatever I have just discussed earlier. First of all, there are regulatory issues to look out for, as digital assets like NFTs are very likely to be classified as securities in Malaysia. There are questions as to how NFTs will counteract with the initial exchange offering IEO guidelines, and there are serious money laundering and terrorist financing risk factors, as the buyers and sellers are anonymous, and there is also no fair market value for prices. All right, with that, I would like to conclude part 2 of today's session. I will now pass the floor back to our moderator, Jin Yong. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you very much, Kelvin, for all that insight. So it looks like the NFT standing in the eyes of the law, at least in Malaysia, it's not yet well defined based on what I've just heard. And I also note that it's quite interesting that there were a lot of times that it's mentioned it's not issued by a government, by a central bank, or instead by a private entity, right? So looking at the poll results for the latest poll, which actually asks, NFTs, do they benefit the creator, or is it just another fad that will pass? Or is it the future of ownership in the digitized world? So the majority so far out of 21 people who have taken polls say that this is the future of the digitized world, right? Interesting thoughts, interesting thoughts. So future of ownership. So a lot of property assets that we have right now, they are virtual, they're intangible. But come to think about it, I'm just thinking artists, singers, content creators, YouTubers, their creation, their blood, sweat, and tears, their life work are intangible. A song, a piece of art. And when I say piece of art nowadays, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to pick up a paintbrush, right? There's a lot of digital artists. One of the earlier slides you saw earlier where we have President Trump lying on the ground, that is a pure digital art, right? Or even a video. So all these are intangible. So which brings to mind a question, all this being intangible, they can be copied easily, replicated easily. So if I purchase or download a song legally, let's say the latest BTS song from Apple Music, do I actually own it? That's the thing I'm wondering. And I think that's something that will lead us into the next part, right? So let's hear from Jihan, who will take us through the intellectual property perspective of NFTs. Jihan.
Hello, hi, Jin Yong. Thanks for that. So for this part, we will delve into some of the IP issues inherent with NFTs. So, okay, ownership of the digital asset itself, which is the line of code that represents the NFT on the blockchain, is different from owning the actual picture, image, character, and other elements of the NFT, such as the video, the music, and so forth. So the ownership of the NFT itself, the lines of code, originally belongs to the minter, the person who creates that the NFT itself, and can be easily tracked on the blockchain. However, the representation or the reference asset of the NFT, which is the picture picture of Trump, the game character, is different. That falls under the purview of copyright law under intellectual property. So what is copyright? Literally, it means the right to copy. That's how the word actually came about. Owning the copyright gives the copyright owner, again, different from the NFT owner, the exclusive right to reproduce the work, distribute the work to the public by sale, etc. Of course, there are exceptions, but that is a topic for another day. To summarize, the representation of NFT includes elements that are likely copyrighted. For example, an image of Batman, image of Trump. And the NFT owner may not necessarily, which is the buyer, may not necessarily have the right to reproduce these elements in another form or expression. So, since ownership of the reference asset is not so clear-cut, we will delve into the risk of uncertainty when you purchase an NFT. I've set out a very likely possible scenario. So, a digital artist creates a beautiful piece of work, and therefore the artist, the artist is then the rightful copyright owner of that artwork. He has not minted it yet, so he just creates a digital art, posts it on a traditional digital art platform. Unscrupulous minter sees it and mints it on a platform such as OpenSea. An innocent buyer purchases it for a large amount of money, Ethereum, and makes the payment through the platform.
Sorry, Jihan, just want to ask
Yes.
the term minting, does that mean that that is actually putting the content or putting the work onto a platform, NFT platform? I mean, what does
Yes.
minting actually means?
Yeah, minting essentially means creating a line of code that is put on the blockchain and therefore becomes a token.
But you don't actually put the, let's say, the picture, the image, the artwork on the blockchain, right? It's just saying that this is
correct. Correct. It's a line of code, but then the line of code will then show the reference asset. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So unscrupulous minter copies the artwork and mints it on a platform. An innocent buyer purchases it for a large amount and makes the payment through the platform. Artist then realizes his original piece of work was sold as an NFT, therefore sues everyone under the sun, including the platform, the buyer, and the minter. If the minter disappears, which is easy as a lot of the key aspect of blockchain technology is anonymity, everyone loses. The artist reclaims and restricts sales of the artwork, but loses potential profit. The sum that the innocent buyer paid is gone, and the buyer loses the artwork because there are provisions under the platform that says that the code can be burned off the chain. Even if the artwork is not burned off the chain, it will be useless as the buyer would not be able to reproduce, distribute, or even communicate to the public unless the artist allows the buyer to do so. Lastly, the platform may have to provide compensation as well to the buyer, depending on the outcome of the lawsuit. Any questions, Jin Yong, on this?
Nope.
Yeah. So as can be seen, this presents a lot of legal complexities when due diligence is not carried out adequately by either the platform or the buyer. So, sorry, next slide, please. Yeah. So as mentioned, it is a real and serious issue, as even the large, popular comic book publication house DC Comics have issued official statement and publicized it. They have informed their freelance artists, warning artists that these artists cannot issue NFTs which contain any of the DC characters. DC Comics has made it clear it will not hesitate to take legal action against any parties that infringe its copyright. However, not every content.
Jihan, this brings me an interesting thought. I mean, DC Comics is warning. You mentioned freelance artists, right? So that means they cannot even, because they draw is their own creation, yet they cannot put it on an NFT platform.
Yeah, so okay, to give you an idea, what is common is that DC Comics owns the copyright to these characters. It's common in this comic book industry to hire a lot of freelance artists to say that, look, I hire you to draw this story about Batman versus Superman, right? For example, 9-10 volumes, I engage this freelance artist. On another type of storyline, which maybe is Green Lantern versus Batman, he may engage another freelance artist to draw, which is why, as you see across comics, the design or the look and feel of Batman, even in comic, can look different because it's drawn by different artists and based upon his or her interpretation of the character. So DC owns the character per se. So all storylines relating to to Batman, Superman, and all their suite of superheroes belong to them. They just engage a freelance artist to say that, look, we give you a limited license and we will pay you to draw 10 volumes of Batman versus Superman. So that is in the tangible world. So therefore, because they have a lot of all these freelance artists, they issue a warning to say, even though you have created comics for us relating to characters that we own, you cannot create individual artwork and sell it online relating to the characters that DC rightfully owns.
Does that imply that DC Comics wants to be the one that is minting the NFT, right?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that, how does the content creator benefit from tokenizing or minting it? I mean, besides the fact that they can sell it the first time out, right? But after it's sold, right, what happens next? If the price goes up, it doesn't go to the original creator. Am I right to say that?
So it depends on the terms of the platform that you place it on and what you implement into the so-called smart contract, the terms of your sale. So it is quite common for subsequent sales of the NFT for a certain percentage royalty to go back to the original creator.
Oh, so that's royalty. That means every time a transaction takes place, the original content creator will still get a slight portion of that transaction.
Yes. It is quite a common, I wouldn't say common, but it's not uncommon term that is embedded into smart contracts whenever these are sold. So which is exactly one of the benefits. That like a lot, you've heard the tale of the the sad artist who never gets recognition until long after he passes away. So for this, if the NFT will, because it's always captured on the blockchain and the ledger, every sale is accounted for. There is no way to bypass or circumvent. So as long as the term is embedded in, every sale on the blockchain, which is verified and goes through, would then reward the original creator. It is a matter of automatic. So that it takes away the enforceability. It takes away the requirement for the creator to go find the new buyer and sue anyone for unpaid royalties. So on top of that, it is a very useful way for them to connect, a new and effective way to connect with audience and fans. It is very easy to trace the provenance, which is the ownership or the chain of custody. So for example, it could be two exact images, but one is created by you, who is a famous artist, and me, cheapskate fraud, who said that
I'm a lousy artist.
Yeah, so although two digital images may look alike, but the fact that this copy comes from you makes it 10 times more valuable compared to my print screen of your artwork. So another benefit is that the NFT space is very collaborative and people are able to make derivatives off of it, which is something that they love. So if you have someone creating derivative from your art, you can potentially grow your brand very fast if you are not currently well known. In terms of monetization, as mentioned, this can earn royalty on secondary trade. And also NFT have the potential to make your art more liquid, and it is open to a much wider audience compared to I say that more people has bought NFT than actual traditional artwork in museums. That definitely applies to me. On top of that, though it is also an opportunity for less well-known artists to make a mark, as you said. Provenance, going back to the word provenance, which I will delve in a bit later again. An artwork may not be well-known or not many people appreciate it. But for example, if a famous person like Jay Chou or Jackie Chan buys it on the secondary market, this price may shoot up a lot. So if Jay Chou, for example, someone like Jay Chou buys it and then sells it to a third person, that third person can say, look, I own something that was previously owned by Jay Chou. And he or she can easily, conclusively prove this based on the chain of custody tied to provenance. So because of Jay Chou's purchase of his artwork, where Jay Chou maybe he knows how to appreciate art a bit more, the original artist would then gain exposure through a famous buyer. So that is a potential value in relation to
famous by association, right? Or
yes,
having a
exactly.
virtual thumbprint on your work.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
So okay, I think I was making it, yeah. So, okay, moving on to the next next slide, I think. Okay, because based on a myriad of rights in the DC example, it is important for content creators, creation companies, and buyers alike. I think there's a question which I will deal with now. So, okay, it depends whether the blockchain can remain anonymous now, because as Jay Chow said, as I said, it's not Jay Chow said, as I mentioned just now, there's an famous article that Jay Chow chose to say that this is the exact NFT that he bought over, and if decided it can be made public. Yeah. So moving on to this, in relation to the Jack Dorsey, it is Therefore, it is important for content creators, creation companies, and buyers to be clear on the rights that exist in the underlying reference asset of the NFT. For businesses and content creators that are thinking of riding the NFT train, this can be accomplished by entering into agreements to make sure that in the clear one is NFT is minted. But on the flip side, for more casual buyers, it's important to understand the T's and C's of the platform, any other licensing agreements, price purchase agreements that we may be part of inadvertently or knowingly once we buy that. So long and short, it is quite clear in the T's and C's. It is open, for example, OpenSea, it is quite expressly stated that the buyer does not own the copyright to the work. They own the line of code that forms the ownership of the reference asset. So and when a minter uploads mints their NFT on the platform, they are also required to make a representation and warranty, which is in the layman term, they need to sumpah and swear that they own the rights to this and to the underlying artwork that they have put on the blockchain. So that is an out for the platform, where if they get sued, they said that they will try to get recourse against the minter. But then again, if the minter disappears, then who do they go after? I see another question. How would the content creator know a derivative of his work has been made? So that's a very good question. The content creator would know if let's say it's a completely new artwork, for example, someone makes a combination of my original artwork and does not inform me, then that infringes my copyright. So when I mentioned derivative earlier, it was more in relation to the NFT for games, where, to use a more relatable example, an NFT, a Pokemon may be an NFT. So under Axie Infinity, there is what we call crossbreeding of the monsters. So when Monster A, yes, so when Monster A and Monster B are represented on the NFT, the derivative work would be their offspring. So then the offspring can say that, oh, the parents or the father and mother are these two original characters, which are, let's say, the first male or the first female, and then that could create a derivative work in that environment. If you're talking about derivative work in the traditional sense of copyright, then yes, it is not in the sense that you will rely on market enforcement to find out if your original work has been made into a derivative work, or what we call bastardized into another piece of art.
I always see that as there's two sides of the coin. If someone wants to make a derivative of your work, that means a lot of people really like your work.
Yes.
I mean,
So by right,
course, you want to be credited.
Yeah, by right, to create a derivative of your work, you as a corporate owner, people who want to create derivative of your work, they need to seek your license and approval.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah. So unless the derivative work is linked to the original work on the chain, which can be easily traced, then that can be traced. However, if I were to make a whole new artwork and I'm scrupulously do not want to link it to the original one, then yes, it could happen, and then I would have to rely on a more traditional manual survey for copyright infringement.
I see.
Enforcement,
Okay.
yes. So interesting. Another real life case scenario. If sometimes when we buy, I think which is most of us here, the value in NFT is not in the reference asset, the artwork, but instead provenance. So for example, saying that they own the NFT of the first ever tweet minted by the CEO of Twitter himself. This is almost like saying that I own a normal check. I can prove as a matter of fact it was conclusively owned and used by Tunku Abdul Rahman during our Declaration of Independence. The value is not in the check, it's probably uncomfortable, but in owning a piece of history. Yeah, so I think there's another question. Okay, so question by Lexi Lee. Can an art collector convert his physical art into digital art, then mint it as an NFT and sell it on any marketplace like OpenSea? Is there any legal issues? Yes, first of all, does the art collector owns the right to physical art? Because as mentioned, if it's like I buy a CD by BTS, it doesn't mean I can make a lot of copies and then distribute it out, because BTS is the copyright owner in terms of the tune, the music. So the art collector owns the right to the underlying art, then yes, he can do that. But if the art collector does not own the copyright and he just owns merely that painting, then he does not own the right. He is not able to, theoretically he's infringing the copyright of the artist. So it goes down to who created that piece of art, and in that transaction between the artist and the art collector, was there an assignment of copyright, which means did the artist give up the copyright to the artwork to the art collector. Purchasing NFTs, any fees? I believe most platforms charge a certain amount of fees for the transaction. In my case, there was fees, but I can't remember how much. Yeah. So in summary, owning the digital asset is different from owning the copyright. I may have owned a picture of the the CryptoPunk, the monkey that represents NFT a lot these days, but doesn't mean I can make t-shirts or continue making NFTs of that image. So the rights to the reference assets have to be authenticated. So which means who owns the rights to the actual artwork, if that is of importance to you. So long and short is to ensure you know what you have purchased is in line with your objectives. If you want to create artwork of that more versions or different characters or stories of that particular character or that art, then you may not have the right to do so. But for you, if you want to trade and own a piece of history or own a bit of thumbprint from someone famous, then maybe the artwork itself is not so important. Therefore, all the IP issues are, out the window.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think
that's an interesting set of presentations. I think there's a lot of questions now, and I'm looking at the Q&A section as well, within meet.ps. We have not forgotten the questions in there, right? So one of the ones that got upvoted the most is that I think we've been talking a lot about art pieces, artwork, but besides art, what else can we do with it? Because if I understand correctly, NFT is used as a means to track, record, or ascertain the ownership. Well, not ownership, but ownership of commonly now is digitally unique assets. Can we use it for other form of assets? Could it be physical assets? What do you think? I don't know. Can it be?
Yeah, definitely. So it can be tied to a physical asset. So I think what Nike, if I'm not mistaken, has done is tied their NFT to a particular shoe. So what they do is that it's like a voucher in a way. So you can keep trading it online. So you don't take your shoe home with you. So you trade it. And if you want the shoe, then you exchange it for the particular shoe. So it could have changed 10 hands before the shoe even leaves the Nike warehouse. So besides that, there are creative artworks, music, videos, in-game properties like the monsters, personal health records, customized domain names, and so forth. It can be anything and however creative you want to use it for. That is my view of it.
There's another question from the Zoom itself, saying, what if a person who owns the NFT pass away and there's no mention of asset division in his will? How would the NFT be passed to his successor?
So yes, that's a very good question. If you're talking about beneficial right, then it would be it will be, if there's no will, then you have to rely, again, out of scope, but you will have to rely on the division of assets based on interstate. A certain percentage go to your parents, children, wife, if any. So that would be subject to the same division, but it comes a practical problem of how are you going to get it, right? But if there are no records, so that if assuming you are able to access it, and the division would go pursuant to either the will or pursuant to our traditional laws of asset distribution.
There's another question that has been upvoted on the Meet PS. What is to prevent duplicate NFTs being created on a particular asset? Example, a painting, whether it's physical or digital.
So what is to prevent duplicate NFTs from being created? So if I understand correctly, you're saying what, maybe it could be a picture of this bottle. Sorry, it could be a picture of exact same picture of original artwork that was made famous. So there is nothing duplicate. As mentioned, I can print screen an NFT and then mint it, but then would mine be worth, would be, like I said, is the importance in the artwork or in terms of ownership? The fact that it's minted by me may not necessarily mean much compared to an artwork minted by Jin Yong, because he has prior name and is an established player in the market. So again, I can print screen what Jin Yong has done and then say that, oh, it's an artwork, but then it will always be tied to me, who is, in a word, a nobody in the NFT world.
I have one question on my own. I mean, can transactions involving NFTs, can they be taxed? Are they subjected to tax?
Perhaps I can take this question. Actually, I get this question a lot from my clients, and the short answer is that it is possible, because similar to cryptos, right? Transactions involving NFTs may be taxed in Malaysia under the Income Tax Act 1967. This is because the provisions of the Act are wide enough to catch income earned from digital platforms, although there is currently no framework for taxes with regards to NFTs. I think the most important thing is to keep in mind is that the more frequent you engage in these profitable transactions involving NFTs, the likelier it is for the LHDN, which is the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia, to consider it as being a taxable revenue. Actually, this would be very similar to the LHDN's current tax treatment on cryptocurrency trading.
Great. Okay, that's good to know. Another question involving, I think there were questions both related to real estate, right? One is that we normally use REITs as a means of investing in real estate. Can NFT be used as a means to replace REIT? I mean, and I think related to that, the other question is, if my property grant is converted to, or rather is stored onto a blockchain as a smart contract, is it an NFT? So can we use NFT as a means of representing ownership of real estate property?
I will take that question. In relation to the real estate question, as we go back to the basic principles and definition, right, as Kelvin explained just now. So an NFT is non-fungible token. Non-fungible means it cannot be exchanged, right? It is unique in its own right, and a token is something on the blockchain ledger. So it fulfills the definition of non-fungible token, meaning if it's unique, your property grant is in relation to that one property, cannot be exchanged for any other token. However, transacting itself is a whole different issue. As I said, it is just a representation of your grant. Doesn't mean land office will acknowledge it. So I don't think it's a good idea to sell your property on the blockchain itself, because it's subject to a lot of processes with the government authorities, and I think it will be a long way for us to go before, I think, speaking freely, our government authorities catch up to this stage to allow transaction of properties on the blockchain, especially when there are so many issues like stamp duty for them to consider. An interesting example, there was an, for example, again, there's this, recently there was the original transcript of Hey Jude, the famous song. So I think the band, it was a handwritten piece of paper that got tokenized and made into NFT, and it was sold for 77,000 USD. Again, that representation is one thing, but just because you bought that piece of NFT doesn't mean you have the right to monetize or get royalty from every person who plays the song Hey Jude. Similarly, if you put your title on it and if people feel like, oh wow, this is, you know, the grand title 001 and it's something of provenance and importance, then it could very well go up in value. But it doesn't mean that the underlying asset that is represented by NFT goes with it as well.
Yeah, I think this relates to a question from Thomas. He was asking, what about creating an NFT based on a photo of a famous person like Messi or Ronaldo? How is this from a legal standpoint?
Okay. So the law varies by country to country. There are certain countries which recognize the right of the photo subject, which means if I take a photo of me, then any monetization on it would have, or it requires either one, my consent, or I'm entitled to a certain commercialization of that photo. However, in a lot of countries, it is quite weird. The copyright actually belongs to the photographer. So there was a case, I think a famous case, if I'm not mistaken, of Dua Lipa, where someone took a photo of her. She liked it so much, she posted it on her social media page, and she got sued by the photographer. So Dua Lipa got sued over a picture of herself. Yeah, it's quite hard to wrap because you have to go back to the basic principles of intellectual property and copyright. It's like, who created that artwork? Dua Lipa was walking and someone took a photo. So who created that picture of Dua Lipa? Is the photographer, him or herself? I can't remember the story, but yeah. So essentially, that is a weird part of it. So in countries, again, if you're talking about creating of NFT based on a photo of a famous person, depending on jurisdiction, some have what we call the celebrity rights of that person itself. In Malaysia, generally, this law is not that well developed. So essentially, the photographer owns the right to the picture, and if it's the photographer that mints it, then he has the right to do so. But then it gets complicated.
That's good to know. That means,
yeah.
Okay, that means if I go around with my smartphone, I snap some celebrity, I'm free to post it, because I'm the content creator, right? In Malaysia, I say.
Yeah,
generally. There's another question that has also been upvoted quite a fair bit. Are there any existing copyright standards created specifically for NFT?
Unfortunately, no. There's no separate what's it called? Separate provisions specifically for NFT. So we all have to go back to the basic principles of IP and copyright law. So which is what I've been going through, the right to copy essentially. There's not just because it's NFT, there's a whole different standard, although it is being increasingly litigated as we speak in more developed nations.
Okay. Related to, I think there's this question on disputes.
In a way, to go back, I think going back, it's a bit difficult to create standards because who is to regulate? There has to be a regulatory body. Even copyright, intellectual property law is jurisdictional specific. So what may be legal or illegal in Malaysia may not be legal or illegal in US. So if we were to have a copyright standard across NFT, which is, you know, without borders, who is the governing body at the top?
Right. So I don't know, maybe then this will complicate matters even more. So this question from limit.ps, what if there's a dispute in relation to the unpaid royalty or any other disputes within the NFT realms? I think I can answer that question, but correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the expert. You're saying just now that the royalties automatically gets paid to the content creator, right? I mean, if the smart contract has that defined inside, right? So there is no question of royalties not being paid if subsequent transactions occur.
Right? Correct.
So here the question further asks, would the aggrieved party have a legal standing, assuming there's unpaid royalty? If that is the case, would that be argued under the IP law? I don't know whether it's still a relevant question in this case.
Smart contract will be argued under contractual law. So the definition of a smart contract is that the terms are enforced automatically. So as you mentioned, if there is a term in there that says the royalty goes back. So once I pay, let's say, one ETH for this piece of artwork, and the content creator original artist is entitled to 10%. Then when I pay for it, there is no middleman, there is no go into bank account, there is straight away, by virtue of the smart contract, 0.1 ETH will automatically go into the content creator's wallet. So compared to traditionally where I may transfer what, let's say, R1 million to A, and then A is supposed to transfer 100,000 back to the original founder, original artist. So as you correctly mentioned, this is the old way. The new way would extremely rare or unlikely that there will be so-called unpaid royalty. In this sense, it would be argued under contract law, which is embedded into the smart contract, which usually has a jurisdictional clause and so on to see how do you resolve any disputes in relation to this contract.
In fact, if I recall correctly, transactions in NFT, or rather in blockchains for that matter, typically they are permanent, right? Once it's done, you cannot edit or amend it. I mean, that's one of the attractive features of having transactions recorded on blockchain. It can never be amended.
The transaction itself cannot be very extremely difficult to be tampered with. Yeah. So I think the last point to the question is that could a fair use doctrine be used as an argument for cases such as recreation of DC characters, for example? Yes, there can be, but then if your artwork features, Batman fighting a supervillain, and you clearly that you put it on the OpenSea to monetize it, then it will be hard to rely on the fair use, because fair use allows you commentary, allows you to talk about critique or report on certain things. But the fact that you are drawing a character owned by DC and monetizing it, it will be very difficult to use the fair use argument.
I just saw another, what looks like a pretty technical question. Can the embedded smart contract be subsequently changed by the minter? What if the minter is dying and wants to bequeath his earnings to another person, or the minter wants to vary his earnings rate? I think it's down to, can the smart contract be changed after the fact?
I think I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it would be very difficult.
Because the smart contract lives on the blockchain, correct?
Yes.
Right, interesting. Let me see. I just want to make sure I managed to cover all the questions. Yeah. Can a creator, so let's say this is the actual creator, can a creator mint the same art piece in two different platforms? So OpenSea is one, and then he decides to, let me mint another in Pentas.
Yeah, so a creator is free to do that. It is his right to do so, but in fact, I think it's not so much a legal issue, but more of a moral issue. If you create so many copies and then you sell all of it at one shot, how would it affect? First of all, it doesn't become scarce anymore. If he creates, assuming he creates the exact same one, then he would dilute the value of his own brand and his own artwork, because it is no longer unique. And it's, let's say, LGN who used to be a very prominent artist, I create 5 of the exact same one and push it out. There's nothing preventing him, but the creator has to consider the impact it has on his own brand.
It's the scarcity that gives it, right? Scarcity and uniqueness, right, that we are looking at.
Yep.
Okay, the other thing about, I think it was alluded to when you used the Nike example. I mean, how are they actually commercial applications, or how have companies like Nike utilize NFT from a commercial perspective? How would, I mean, or in Malaysia for that matter, how can companies take advantage of this to actually, I don't know, sell the products, increase their sales?
They could tie it to the physical asset. They could use it as a marketing tool. They could, okay, going back to Nike, right? As mentioned, they tied it back to the shoe. So it takes away the risk of having to maintain or keep it in good condition. I think you've seen how many trading cards have devalued because they were not in good condition. So by converting the ownership or the right to obtain a physical asset into a digital token, I can happily buy and sell without having to worry, or if the rain touches my shoe, I have to keep it in a nice glass box. I can keep trading, buying, selling the right or the voucher to that Nike shoe without worrying about keeping it. So then if the person really wants the shoe in its physical form, he will trade it in, so-called trade in with Nike, to say that, look, I want to redeem my shoe, and here is the proof that I've bought it legitimately.
So I want to finally hold it, smell it, touch it.
Yes.
Right. At the risk of damaging it, because once you're dealing with the, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. Question in Zoom: if a person has sold many NFTs in a calendar year but never cash out or transfer into fiat, will the profits or income be taxable? It's only in crypto.
So many things in Canada but never cash out or transferred. Well, it depends. I think right now, I'm not tax lawyer or tax agent by stretch, but I think if it is, I think that if it is not declared, if you haven't monetized it yet, there's no way to declare it as income in ringgit. So I think it's best to maybe consult with a tax agent, but my gut feel is that the money shouldn't be taxable.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but again, just a disclaimer: there's no financial advice being given here.
Yeah, no financial advice, no investment advice.
Yeah, so this is just a personal opinion of the speakers here, right? So it's best to seek the relevant subject. Yeah, but I think I probably want to add to that question to say that you sell, but where is that platform that you're using to sell from, right? Is it here in Malaysia, or is it somewhere overseas? That would the jurisdiction where the platform is matter?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one. This is probably a content creator. Just wondering if there are any trusted or untrusted platform to sell our artwork as an NFT. You mentioned OpenSea is the largest, right?
OpenSea by far is the largest and most established.
And I think they, in the platform also, they always have a scoring or verification for both the seller and the buyer. Is that right?
Yep, correct.
So probably it's more like you want to go to those that have been well established, and you know that this is where content creators and buyers both congregate to actually trade NFTs.
Correct.
Okay, just again scrolling through some of the questions. I think most of it has been done. And looking at the polls, by the way, the polls, the final question is already out, and it's interesting to note that the majority now is saying that after today's session, I'm going to buy my first NFT, right? But 1/4 will say I'll stay away from NFT. Another 31% is saying still clueless about NFT. Okay, so not to worry, we still have a subsequent part 2 for this webinar series, right? So yeah, the screen sharing is just started. So if you found this session interesting, well, like I said, you ain't seen nothing yet. Next week, I think you saw earlier also the slides. Next week on the 17th, that will be part 2, right? Navigating a future filled by NFTs, right? Should you buy a property on Decentraland, right? They are actually folks who spend a fortune buying virtual property. I think there was this Singaporean artist who bought a few prime spots in Decentraland. And then other people, when they found out that he bought it there, they wanted to be his neighbor and they had to pay a premium to actually buy virtual land besides the virtual land owned by a celebrity, right? So what do you need to get started on trading, right? I think if you're interested to know more about that, stay tuned for the next part, which is on the 17th of February. So on behalf of the CAK Society of Malaysia, I think we have almost coming to a close. I would really like to express our sincere thank you and appreciation to both our gentlemen here for sharing their time, their experience and their knowledge, and also some very interesting examples that they have brought out, right? Also, thank you to our event partner ACCA for their support. And of course, our ever dependable society team who's looking behind the scenes, making sure all the questions comes up and also the right slides comes up, right? And of course, finally, to you, the audience, for your participation, right? So it has been a very, very engaging session, right? So again, once again, thank you so much, Kelvin. Thank you so much, Jian, for coming on stage, virtual stage, right? Everything is virtual, including assets and shoes and toilet paper, right? Obviously, get back to that, right? So with that, that will be the end of the session today. So we do look forward to seeing all of you in 1 week's time. We'll be looking at the other aspects of NFT, right? So thank you, stay safe, and have a very good evening.
On behalf of GLT Law, thank you, Jin Yong, for having us. It's a pleasure, and for your in-depth questions. Hope everyone took something away. And I noticed that the poll has gone up a bit, 45%. We're going to buy now. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
thanks everyone. Bye.